Thanks, everyone. So happy to be here. I brought a few slides that I thought would kind of set the table, and then I'm hoping we can spend most of the time in Q and with Q&A. And the reason why I thought this topic would be important is so many people ask about how do I talk to angel investors? What do they want to hear? When's the right time to talk to them? How do I approach them? And, some people even have some fear around it. So I thought if I could demystify it a little bit, that would be a helpful thing. Okay. And jump in if you have questions. Okay. Don't worry about interrupting. And okay. It's not like I'm not doing presentations there we go, all day long. It's just not working right now. Okay. So I first wanted to set the table with what the early stage, when we talk about the early stage funding ecosystem is, all the different ways to get funding. So unlike what anyone else will tell you, which is don't run up your credit, when you're first leaving school and everyone says, whatever you do, don't use credit cards, save money, all that kind of stuff. When you are starting a company, you want to self-fund as long as possible, as long as you're not going to miss a window of opportunity by doing that. But the longer that you can self-fund, the better, because you can make progress before you go to an investor, and you can have a higher valuation for your company and have some kind of proof statement when you get to them, which makes the whole process much easier and much more on your side. Okay. The next stage is friends, we call friends, family, and fools. And there are some barriers to that. If you don't have friends and family who can write you checks, that might be a problem. I used to tell my students at Temple, your friends and family may not have money. There may be a professor, not me, who believes in you, who might write a check. There might be someone that you've worked for who believes in you, who might write a check. And this is it's kind of like it can really help you kind of jumpstart your business. But as investors, as we're kind of learning about some of the barriers that people have, we understand that expecting everyone to have friends, money from friends and family is not necessarily an indicator. Crowdfunding is a great way if you have a consumer product to get to get early funding to develop your product, and to also, again, to say, look, we raised $20,000 on crowdfunding, 5,000 people wanted to buy our product. So that's a good way of doing some early fundraising. There's business plan competitions, the incubators, the accelerators, the regional agencies. Mark's here representing, Ben Franklin, really important, hugely important. Cannot say it enough. If you're in the 5-county region, extremely important source of funding. And a lot of times my group or other angel groups are the match for the money that they put forward. Then you come to angels, and then you come to venture capitalists. And if you're interested, and if there's time, I can talk to you later about the difference between angels and venture capitalists. So I want to focus right now on angel investors. And again, if you've got questions, just interrupt me and stop. So, a lot of people they kind of want to understand what's going on inside the head of an angel investor. So a little history. The first angel investors were not investing in technology companies. The first angel investors were investing in Broadway plays. And anyone here from Boston? No? So Harry Frazee was the owner of the Red Sox, who sold Babe Ruth to the New York Yankees in order to fund No Nanette. And that was the beginning of the, Red Sox, 84 years of no World Series. So Harry Frazee's name is not allowed to be said in my dad's house, in my parents' house, but that's who the earliest angel investors were. They were people who were helping to fund Broadway plays. And then over time, they've been funding, they've been funding startups. So a typical angel investor, they've exited a company themselves. So they think of themselves more as entrepreneurs than investors. So when you're talking to them, remember that their heart goes, they're an entrepreneur at heart. They want to help investors. They want to help grow companies. So if you can relate to them like entrepreneur to entrepreneur, instead of thinking of them as a checkbook, that will help you a lot. That's really important. Angel investors tend to want to invest in companies in their area because they want, in their region, they want to see companies in their region grow. It's not philanthropy per se, but this is a way for them to give back their time, to give back their energy, to give back their know-how, and to give back money to help the next entrepreneur get started. So they want to dream with you. And that's one of the important things to do when you're talking to an angel investor, is to help them dream alongside you. Okay. So you're going to share your dream. You want to sound really passionate. You want to sweep them up and have them dreaming alongside you. They want to invest and they want to help grow companies. Some angel investors are still running their own companies, but a lot of them have exited their companies and now they're like looking around going, I can't do this again. This is way too much work, or I'm too old, or, I didn't get to my kids, soccer game for 3 years. It's time to, re-engage with the family, but I still have this passion for growing companies. So that's a little bit about what's inside the mind of an investor in terms of who they are. So what are they looking for? I'm going to show you a couple different slides about what they're looking for, but it's kind of different versions of it. So you'll see what I'm doing as we go along for. So what's the angel's dream when they look to you when you come to them with a proposition to invest in your company? So they are hoping to make 10 to 20 times their money in 5 years. Okay. But that means they want the company to grow 10 to 20 times, right? They want to see you grow. They want to see the company grow. And their intent is that they will make 10 to 20 times their money. So if you come to them and say, I'm looking for a loan and I'll pay dividends of, X% a year, that's really not who most investors are about. They're looking at the big picture, and they're willing to lose a lot of money in a lot of companies in order to, get one of those 10 to 20 times their money. And so this, as the story goes, or as the data shows, only about 1 in 10 companies is a big hit. Most of them, the angels lose their money or they just break even. So they're looking to get 10 to 20 times their money. They have to believe that your company can return that. There's a whole formula for that. I can cover that, another time if people are interested. They're looking for a really committed management team. And by committed, we mean some, people are in it full scale. Now we know, especially for younger entrepreneurs, that you may not be able to be full-time in your company until you get that funding. But then we want to know you're working every night, every weekend, every spare minute you have on building that company. A lot of times we'll see, a professor or a physician who's starting a company, who's got a great idea, and they want to be the CEO, but they don't want to lose their tenure or they don't want to lose their medical practice. So they're not really in it full time. We love them. We want them to grow and build their company, but they're not the CEO of the company. We want to know CEO is really in it. So again, when you're talking to the entrepreneur, share your passion. Let them know how hard you're working. Let them know, how dedicated you are to them. And we want you to have some skin in the game. So if you tell me that you're a serial entrepreneur who's, bought and sold companies, it's been very successful. Or if you tell me that you worked for Merck for 20 years, and people who work for Merck, can make $200,000. We want you to have some serious money of your own invested in the company. And we don't expect you to take a salary for the first couple of years. If you tell me you're 3 to 5 years out of school and, you're doing this and you don't have much in savings, I don't expect you to put your money into the company, but I expect you to take a very low, that your skin in the game is to take a very low salary in the beginning years of the company. We want to know that you're really committed to it. If we're putting our money into it, you've got to have something into it. And Most angels are looking for involvement in the venture. There's passive angels. If you can find them, that's great. But most angels really want to have involvement in the venture. So when you meet an angel, they should be able to add some value to your company because they're going to want to be involved. So make sure that that they're right for you. That's just as important as you being right for them. You got to really like them. Some investor entrepreneurship relationships last longer than marriages. So, you got to really like that person, and you got to really think they're going to add some value to you, to your company. So what's the process for getting funded by angels? So if it's an individual angel, you might have a couple meetings and then they write a check. But usually if you're talking about angel groups, there's a process. And Ben Franklin's is also it's a little bit different, but it kind of follows along this track. So first you apply, and then we get a huge number of applications, and some of them just make no sense. They're from another country. They're not in an industry that we understand at all. It's someone's got an invention and there's no business around it, right? So a huge number don't make it past the application process. Then we have a screening review. We have a screening committee of people who understand, your industry or your area or your domain. And from there, we'll pick about 3 companies a month to actually present at a meeting in front of, we've got 50, 60 members in our group. And most groups operate this way. We do a monthly screening and a monthly meeting. So we don't have like a batch, or there's no specific timeline when you have to apply by. You just, when you're ready, you come apply. And so we'll have about 3 new companies present. If we like the company, if we think there's it's not just if we like it, if we think it's scalable, if we think we could get 10 times our money, if people in the group really think that we understand the business, then we'll move into due diligence. Now, if you come into due diligence with, here's all my documentation, it's all ready to go, here's the deal terms, I'm working with this attorney and they've helped me put these deal terms together, we've already, we're talking to these other investors and we're ready to go. The due diligence process is going to go much faster than if you don't have this stuff all ready and tied up. But that's okay, because the due diligence process is actually, when done right, a collaborative learning process. Like in our group, we'll work with you during the due diligence process. The financials aren't quite right, we'll work with you on the financials. If the value proposition isn't clearly stated, we'll work with you on that. We'll get it to the point that it's investable to the whole group. And then if we get to that point, we actually run a book. I throw an Excel spreadsheet up on the Zoom wall. Everybody tells me how much they're in for. And if we can get anywhere between about 200 to 500,000 of interest, we'll then move into negotiations on the terms. I can't stress enough how important it is to have an attorney who understands entrepreneurial deals. Okay, that's really critical, because there's pretty standard terms, and a good deal attorney will keep you on the standard and won't let you talk to an angel who wants you to put in all these really horrible, harsh terms. And if your deal's if your company is a good company and it has a good path, you should not be getting tough, terrible terms from an investor. But a good attorney can tell you whether they're awful or it just sounds awful. And again, stick to the standard. Whole nother topic for another day. I hope, maybe you guys can bring in an attorney to talk about what deal terms look like. So we go through the negotiation, then we close the deal. Then the hard stuff comes. You got your check, and you got to start working, and you've got to start reporting back to us. And I'll talk about that in a minute. One other thing I didn't mention is, it sounds, when I'm talking about this, like you're just dealing with one group at a time. You actually want to be dealing with multiple groups at a time, unless one group says they'll take the whole deal. And in Philadelphia, that almost never happens. It takes It takes a village here, right? So most of the deals that we do, we're working with 2 or 3 different angel groups in addition to matching Ben Franklin dollars. If you're in New Jersey, we're matching New Jersey EDA dollars. But the angels work together really well. You don't want to play us off against each other. It doesn't work. It's not like a monopoly or an oligarchy, but what you want to do, you don't want to have different sets of terms. You want one clean set of terms that all the angels agree to. And you don't want to have to go through that whole due diligence process, one after the other. You want to get done with the funding as soon as possible. So get the angels to agree to work together with you on due diligence. That's a good thing, not a bad thing. Okay. Any questions so far?
Hey, Alan, I believe Jesse has a question.
Okay, Jesse.
Yes, Kate, thank you. Alan, yes, so to these 3, or these, the slide that you have up, especially with the first 3,
Mhm.
with your group or other groups like yourself,
Mhm.
if you do not pass or there needs to be a fix, is there an opportunity or is there a certain waiting period that you can come back and continue moving on with that process?
Yeah, and actually almost every company that we've ended up investing, not every company, but a nice amount of companies, we said no for right now, but let's work with you. You know, here's what we think the milestones are that you need to reach in order to be ready to present or in order to go into due diligence. And when you hit those milestones, let us know.
Fantastic. And the follow, then do you have to start back at the apply or do you kind of leave off?
You update the application. You let me know you've updated the application, because unfortunately the platform we use doesn't tell me you've updated. So you
Absolutely.
right. So you tell me you've updated it, and then we'll rescreen it. And we'll usually have if it's one that we've already looked at once, we'll have a conversation with you about it to see, where are you? But it's a very, and we try and give you good feedback. If you feel like you apply to an angel group and they say no and they don't give you good feedback, push back. Okay, nicely, but push back, right? And because you should get the truth. There's sometimes we'll give you like the short answer of what wasn't right. And if you feel like you didn't get enough information, call whatever angel group you're dealing with. Get the director or get the person who was kind of your sponsor, if you had a sponsor, and get them to say, tell me the whole unvarnished truth. Okay. And then they might go into the details, but we tend to really try and give you enough milestones and details to know what to work off of.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Any other questions about the process?
Always, but please continue.
Okay.
There was a question if your group is still using Gust for your application process.
We are still using Gust. Yep. And a lot of the groups in the region are using Gust. There's a bunch of others. None of them are perfect, but we're still on Gust. Okay, anything else? All right, I'll move on. So a couple of things to think about before getting involved with angels. So we want to be a partner. So make sure you want a partner. Some people go into entrepreneurship because they don't ever want a partner or a boss again. Well, as soon as you take money from an investor, you got to set up a board of directors, and they're going to have some input. They're going to have some rights in the deal documents that you create. And if you don't want that, don't take investor money. Okay. Find find another way to get the money, but you really have to do some soul searching before you take money from an investor. Understand that involving angels means giving up equity. You're giving them a piece of the company. There's a really great article called Rich, Eamon, you always know the stuff that's in my head, Rich versus King. It's called Rich versus King. And the question is, do you want to be rich or do you want to be a king? And it's a great article. It really makes people think about it. A lot of people would rather be a king and, own their own domain than be rich. And some people can be rich and be a king, but most people it's an and or. So think about which you want to be. Okay. Know that your forecasts are going to be we're going to reforecast it. We're going to, work with you on the valuation. There's a lot of stuff that, we'll probably be pushing back on. So know that. And it's not meant to be done adversarially. And again, getting inside the head of an angel if you can keep it from getting adversarial and keep remembering that they used to be an entrepreneur and kind of talk to them entrepreneur to entrepreneur, that's a win. Okay. Know that you're going to, I say monthly financials. It's usually quarterly financials. We used to ask for monthly and it never got it. So it really should be quarterly financials and strategic updates. And now with the beauty of Zoom, we were actually doing like every 6 months. The best led companies are doing quarterly or biannual updates for their investors, on Zoom and talking about, here's what's working, here's what's not working, here's where we need your help. And again, you want to keep the investors on your side, keep talking to them about, here's where I need help. I'm looking to set up an office in Canada. Do you know anybody? Well, guess what? There's 65 people in our group. We do. We know someone who can help you set up an office in Canada. So keep them on your side and off your back by asking for help because they want to be helpful. And again, I got this like 5 times. I didn't even realize it. Engage an attorney and make sure you set up the right structure and the right deal. I see a few questions in chat. Did I miss any? I've been a king for years. Now I want to be richer. That's funny. Okay. And Eamon as ever, thank you for posting the article. That's awesome. I love working with Eamon. Okay. Any questions on this? All right, then let's see. All right, so here are some things angels want to know when you're presenting to them. Okay. And if your presentation covers these things, you're in pretty good shape. What is the opportunity and how big is it? Remember, we want to dream. So you want to talk about that total market of being huge, but you also want to help us understand how are you going to hit that market, right? So that's a bottom, whereas how big is the opportunity is a top-down model. How are you going to get that market is bottom up. Here's how we're going to get the first 100 sales. If you're going to consumer, if it's a SaaS model, and like if you're doing $200,000 contracts with hospitals, here's how we're going to get the first 3 hospitals. Okay. So how big is it and how are you going to get there? Top down, bottom up. How do you make money? We want to know that. So many pitches do not talk about the money. We want to know about the money. So what's your revenue model, right? Who's going to pay? And how much are they going to pay? And, is it monthly? Is it recurring? Is it a razor blade? Is it the razor blade model? What's the business model? What's the revenue model where you're going to make money? Okay. And then do you have proof that customers will buy? Is it essential or a nice to have? So a lot of people ask the question, when do I talk to an investor? And I'll tell you, talk to them talk to them early, but don't pitch them, which is different. Don't pitch them until you've got product market fit. When you know who is the customer who's going to pay you real dollars, and you've got some proof that they will actually pay you. That's the sweet spot for when you actually ask for the dollars. But when do you engage with them? Early on. And I'll talk about that in a couple minutes. Okay. But so back to this also, is it essential or is it a nice to have? You've got to convince the investor that this is something that's really, people are feeling a real need for it. Now that need can be a luxury need, but it's a real need. It's not a nice to, it's not just a nice to have. And so how you convey that is important. And you may be conveying that to someone who hasn't lived your experience. And so we're trying to, let me give you an example. There's a pitch, I always refer to this one, Bethany Edwards from Leah Diagnostics. And I know that Eamon has this one. It's a 6-minute pitch that she did. And she was pitching pregnancy detection kits, okay, to a room full of men. And she did such a great job of bridging the experience that women have buying and using, EPT tests, right? She did a great job with it. So figure out how to help your audience relate. And there are some industries we just don't know. And so again, you're going to have to help translate for us, music, entertainment. We've got a few people in the group, but not so much. Fashion, not so much. But if it's fashion technology and you can help us understand the pain point, we would invest in that. Okay. So is it essential? Is it nice to have? And help us understand the pain point in a way that even if we haven't had that experience, we might. Another great example is Burrow. I don't know if you've seen Burrow Furniture. Their first go-to-market was focused on millennials who lived in apartments in urban areas. So the furniture, like IKEA, is very easy to assemble, but unlike IKEA, it's very easy to take apart. So when you move, you can take your furniture apart and move it. So imagine you're talking to a room full of people who live in houses in the suburbs with huge front doors, and the concept of trying to get furniture through a front door is a non-issue. Okay, so you've got to help them understand that problem. Okay, can you defend it in the market? What's your secret sauce? Now, we don't sign NDAs, so when I say what's your secret sauce, don't tell us the algorithm. Don't tell us what the special formula is, but give us enough comfort that you've got the IP around it if you need to have IP. Okay. Can you execute? Show us your track record for executing. Okay, that's important. And then really importantly, which a lot of people leave off their pitches, what are you going to do with our money when you get it? Where's it going? How's it being used? And a lot of times, and that'll engender a discussion. Some entrepreneurs don't ask for enough. Some entrepreneurs ask for too much. So we might have a conversation about it. You might say, I need $1 million to develop this, this, and this and get it out to market. And we might say, you really need 250,000 to get to your, to get to those 3 hospitals. You need more money to get to 20 hospitals. So we'll fund what it takes to get to 3 hospitals. Okay. And so we might have that discussion, or we might say, if you're only asking for 250 and you really need $1.5 million to get to this critical milestone, if we give you 250, that's what we call a bridge to nowhere. It's not going to do anything. So you really need to do this as $1.5 million round. Let's work together to help you find other investors so you can get to that $1.5 million. So that should engender a discussion, but you need to think through the milestones. And you should have a slide with your milestones and how much money you need to hit each of those milestones and how that milestone will monetize your company. Okay. Do we have questions in the chat? Let me see. No, we look okay. All right. Any questions so far? All right. I'll jump forward. Okay. So another way on that investors think about what they're looking at when they look at a company is 3 things. And almost every investors agree on very little, but one thing almost all investors will agree on is they look at the team first. Is this a team that can execute and understands the problem? Okay. It's really understanding the problem that investors care about first and foremost. Once you understand the problem, is the market, do you have a market that's significant enough that investment makes sense? And do you understand that market well? And then do you have the product, that will solve the problem that market is experiencing? So we tend to go in that order. And it's human nature to go, oh, I love this product, but we have to step back and say, is this a team that can execute? Is it a big enough market? Do they have the right product? Because the product's going to change. I can't think of any company in our portfolio where the company didn't change a lot over the time that we invested. And so it's great that you have a great product, but we want to know that you're a team that listens to the market, listens to us, listens to experts, and then can take in information from the market and adjust the product as you need to. So that's another, way of kind of slicing. So when you're thinking about how you're presenting, make sure you cover all of these things: team, market, product. And, again, whatever, think about how to get people excited about you and your team. So generally, when it's a pitch presentation to a large group, we just want one person pitching. But one great way of showing how strong your team is when it comes to Q&A. If it's a financial question, defer it to your CFO. If it's a product question, defer it to your data scientist or whatever. And then we get to see how strong the whole team is, and we get to see how seamlessly you all work together. That's really important. If two of you went to high school together and you've been, BFFs for 10 years, that's a cool thing to tell too, right? We know that you've been through hard times and good times. So things that help us understand the team. Okay, and we're really looking for diversity in the team also in a lot of different ways. Do you have different skill sets? If you've got 3 tech people on the team, that's a concern. Okay, we want to know that you've got some different skills. We want to know that you've got people with different types of experience, and we really are looking at diversity in terms of gender, race, etc. We want to know that it's not, everybody's the exact same thing, because then you're not going to be able to hear the market. Okay. Other general criteria that Robinhood has specifically, a little bit of repeat here, but we're looking for a really good agile management team. We tend to like to invest in companies locally. Not all groups do, so you might want to explore that. When you go on the site, you do the research. Go look in Crunchbase to see what companies that group has invested in, or if they have a portfolio page. That'll give you an idea of what kind of companies they like. We tend to like proprietary technology, but it's not exclusively, but we do tend to prefer that. We're really looking for a sustainable and scalable business model, because if you come back to that potential for high return, we need to see that. We tend to prefer business to business, but we've done some B2C. We've done a fair amount of B2C in the last few years. Simply Good Jars, Leah Diagnostics, Burrow. I'm sure there's a couple of others. So we've started to do some B2C. We want to understand that you are thinking about an exit strategy. We don't want you overly focused on exit. We want you building the best company you can, but we want to know that you understand that you've got to sell that company at some point, right? And you need to be thinking about, is there someone who might want to buy it? And that'll probably change over time as your company changes, but we want to know you're in that mind frame of thinking about exits. We generally want an opportunity for a board seat commensurate with our investment. If we're only investing $100,000 in $1 million round, we don't deserve a board seat really, unless there's somebody in the group that you really hit it off with and you think from a knowledge standpoint they'll add value. But if we're investing, 250 in a $1 million round or 500,000, we should get a board seat, or we at least somebody in that round should get a board seat. So if there were 3 angel groups that came together, one of the angel groups should get a board seat, and maybe one of the others would get an observer seat. That's something you can negotiate, but just know that's inside the angel group's head. We want to make sure somebody in our business someone in our group has expertise that matches your company, and you really want to make sure somebody that you're taking money from can understand your company. And the valuation should be in line with early stage opportunities. And East Coast and West Coast are like 2 different worlds in terms of valuation, in terms of the deal terms, even in terms of the instruments that we use. So you need to understand that and be aware of it. Your attorney can help you, other friends and colleagues can help you, but you should be in line. You need to do some homework to see if where you are in your company's progress is in line. But as long as you're in a reasonable amount, it'll engender a discussion. If you say, we're pre-product and we want 20 million, I'm going to send you an email back saying, go do your homework, come back. But if you're closer in the ballpark, then we can have a discussion. Okay.
Hey, Ellen, there was
Yes.
a question about, does Robinhood help founders fill gaps on the team?
Yes. Yes. That is one of the things that we definitely try and do. It's nothing you should be looking at your investors for. Do they know enough people in your space to help you? So yeah, we've done it. We definitely try and do that. Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you. There's also a question, if a company ticks all the boxes, but 2 of them, not B2C and not in the area, should they still apply to Robinhood?
Yeah, I think so. I would at least come to office hours and talk about it and see if it makes sense. Once you apply once on Gust, it proliferates across, you can easily proliferate around other groups. So there's not really an issue. If you're not from the area, and we are looking at some B2C, but I have to say, if it's fashion B2C, we are probably not the group. Okay. Just don't have that. But if you look in the bios in our group and you see someone who might, so maybe you really want someone who understands e-commerce, like we have 2 people from Revzilla in our group. They understand e-commerce. I would venture that they don't know much about fashion, but if you really need someone who understands e-commerce and you're in that fashion space, then yeah, we do have the expertise. So that's okay. If you're outside the region, it's interesting. The pandemic has completely changed the way we think about people outside the region. We still want to help and grow businesses locally, but if you can connect with us in a way, then we would look, then we would look at a company outside the region. So an example is one of our members was watching the Dolphin Tank, which is it's a pitch event for women-led companies. And there was a company in San Diego, and one of the members of our group saw it and thought, oh, this is a great company. He reached out, he talked to the founder, he really liked it. He brought it into the group, and we did invest, even though San Diego and before the Dolphin Tank, we didn't understand it. We do try and go, we do try and attend some national events, in certain spaces and things. So we're doing some of that. But again, we like to invest in Philly, but if it's the right opportunity, we'll definitely do it. Other questions? No, we're not flashing anymore. Okay. So how to interact with Robinhood, and most groups have something similar. This is another, I don't want to make light of the pandemic, but there have been some really interesting opportunities that have come out of it. And one of it has been, we used to do office hours once a month at the Science Center for an hour. And, people had to come in and now we could do when things are back open, we'll do that too for people who want to meet in person. But we do 2 hours a week, 4 sessions a week of office hours that you can sign up for in advance. And it's low key, it should be low key, low stress. You're not pitching, you're asking, you're just, here's what I'm working on. What do you think? What should I be thinking about? You'll hopefully get some good advice. And sometimes happened today, somebody was presenting and one of the people in our, from our team from office hours said, this is great. Can you apply? Because I think we'll like it. So office hours is a way to connect. The other thing, but if you think you're ready to go, just apply. And you just go to our website. There's an entrepreneurs page. There's a link. When you set up the profile, make sure you point it to Robinhood Ventures. And then we'll get back to you. It's usually within a month because we screen every month. So you should, unless it's an odd day, you should be able to get an answer within a month. In addition, our members go to a lot of local online events, PSL, Quorum, you know, you name it. We're really trying to participate in a ton of stuff. So that's a place to approach people as well. I also want to mention, you know, an advertisement for PSL. I love their guide. It's great. I send people to it all the time. This is a list of all the different investors and funding opportunities. There's a ton of them. Okay. So these are others. If we're not a fit for you, there's a lot of other groups. And then I also wanted to mention MADV, Mid-Atlantic Diamond Ventures Forum. This helps get companies ready for funding. So you're just about ready to pitch. You've never pitched before, but your company's in the right place. You know, you've gone through OnRamp or you've gone through PSL's, you know, accelerator or whoever's. You can apply to the Venture Forum, and it's on Gus too. And then we'll pick 12 companies to go through a screening process. 12 companies to go through a review process. We get an hour of feedback from a room full of investors. And then we'll pick usually 8 to actually present at a quarterly event. And we throw all kinds of help and coaching to people going through this. So this is a good thing to go through. And then one of the hardest things is to get attention from an investor. So, you know, yes, you apply, we look at your application, looks interesting, but if you really want to bubble up to the top, that's where it's helpful to get in front of people. This is another way of doing that. Office hours is a way of doing that. Going to events is a way of doing that. But MADV, I think, really helps the companies that go through. And then that's all I have for presentation. And never end a pitch deck with "that's all I have for presentation." Huh? That was one of Ellen's rules. You know, do a summary of, here are the main points I want you to remember. So what questions can I answer for you?
I have a quick question. So I really like the point that you made about sort of the unique aspect of the Philadelphia community being sort of small enough that it means that you wouldn't be able to play people off against each other, I suppose. I'm just curious if there are other aspects of the angel scene that are somewhat unique to Philadelphia that you're familiar with, or just way things that get done here that might be different than some other places.
Yeah. And you moved here recently, right?
Yeah, I grew up here, moved to New York for a couple of years, and then came back recently.
Yeah. Okay. So I know this sounds funny, but we're actually friendlier from what I've heard and from the other angels I've met in different areas. So that's one thing. But and we do, as I said, we work together. We've got different forums where we, where we work together, and we'll share, again, we share deals. I think we're a little more risk averse than in New York. I don't think, I know we're more risk averse than in New York than in on the West Coast. Our terms are a little tougher. Pre-money valuation is lower. And we want to see a little bit more progress. And there are a few investors in this region who are a little more, left coastish, but most of us kind of do fit that, and we know that. But I think the other thing, again, I think one of the other things kind of Philadelphia-ish is we love Philadelphia. And so, like I heard someone, in the screening session, hey, this is a company from Philadelphia, they're making progress, they're trying hard, let's give them a shot. So I don't know that you hear that in other places as much.
Certainly not New York.
No. Yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions? Mark, do you want to correct me on anything?
All I can say, no, I absolutely don't. I couldn't disagree with one thing that you present today. I will just stress one of the key takeaways here. I can't stress it enough. There are a lot of smart people at Robinhood, and this notion of reaching out early and just establishing that relationship and understanding the expectations is very valuable. Whether you end up getting funded or not, you're going to walk away with some value for your company. So I strongly encourage to reach out early. That not only goes for Robinhood, but for Ben Franklin as well.
Mhm. They blow me, some of the members blow me away sometimes. There was a woman who was presenting, it was like a coating company. And then one of the members raised his hand and said, well, you know, when I was working on a top secret military submarine project, and we all looked around. It's amazing the kind of connections and things that some of the folks in the group have. So you just gotta kind of find it. So the question is, when is it too early to reach out? I think if it's just to get to know people, it's never too early. We did this fun thing, Trace, remember at the Science Center? I guess it was, God, it must have been 2 years ago at this point, right? Where it was an elevator pitch. And one of our members rode up and down the elevator for 2 hours with people. And you got your 5 minutes to do a pitch. I did that, I did that with Uber. When Uber first came out, Josh Koppelman put something together. It was, riding in cars with investors. And some of that stuff was super early, but we love talking to people. So it's never too early, as long as you're not trying to pitch it too early. Okay. You don't want to oversaturate with pitching until it's the right time, but it's never too early to talk, to reach out. And, it's kind of crazy, but I actually have, I've got a phone number on our website that I actually, that I answer. And sometimes I get sometimes I'll get, crazy things on there, but it's still fun to talk to people and help them. A couple of other places to go, besides, everything that the Science Center and PSL has to offer is there's a small business development center. They provide tremendous services for free. If you're super early, I have this idea for an invention and I don't know where to start. There's a group called SCORE. You can try them. There's a lot of different places to get started, but most of our members eat, drink, and breathe this stuff. So it's never too early to reach out. It's just a little too early to pitch sometimes. What else? But I would just say, just remember that most of these members, most of the investors were entrepreneurs first. And if you can do that entrepreneur to entrepreneur, we're in this together thing, that's a good thing. May I share?
Yeah. Hi, this is David. I'm actually not in Philadelphia and thinking about commercializing a technology in Philadelphia, and primarily because of the attitude of the investment community. One of the things that I find in other areas is people may have made their money in a different industry, such as real estate, and they think that because they were successful there, it must translate into every other industry. And the openness, the interest, the curiosity that I find in Philadelphia, and it being on a human scale and level, just says to me, this is an ecosystem that I want to be part of. Thank you.
That's cool. Anybody else?
I tossed this in the chat, but I was just curious what the biggest or most common deal breaker is here in the early stage. I'm sure this varies among investors and kind of personal preferences, but the one that initially comes to mind.
I think the value proposition not being super clear is probably, that's like the very first thing that we kind of hone in on. Is the value proposition clear? Do they really understand their business? Do they really understand the domain? And I think that's the biggest deal breaker, is an unclear value proposition. And if the deck is done with whole lot of lingo. We may actually understand the lingo, but that doesn't tell us that you can convey what the value proposition is. So you want to kind of, you know, what was it? Denzel Washington always said, tell it to me like I'm a 4-year-old. I always say, tell it to me like I'm a 4-year-old, and tell it to me so that my grandmother would understand. If you can do both, you know, you've really kind of hit it. And Tracy, that's a great advertisement. You're right, because that's what I see people helping each other with in the roundtable. I've really been enjoying the roundtable because I think it's really helped people clarify their vision and their message in a really good way.
It's exciting to see people come back week after week, or, you know, over a series of weeks and see the evolution, because I do really think that's probably one of the biggest things that comes out of those sessions is, you know, in the beginning, it feels like there's lots of feedback, but over time you see people's thoughts coalescing, and I do think it's helpful.
Okay. Well, hopefully everyone's got my contact information. It's right on our website. You can email me. It's probably the best way is to email me if you need anything. And please sign up for office hours. I think we're going to have to expand them soon because they've been getting taken up. But we're really enjoying it. I hope that the community's, you know, been enjoying our doing it. Here's a question. When someone reaches out to start the conversation relationship, should they be prepared to ask for something? I think you should always ask for advice. You know, there's an expression, when you want money, ask for advice. Mm-hmm. Always ask for advice. Okay. And yeah. Someone else? All right, Emily, I guess I'll turn it back over to you.
I'm trying to think of another question. Well, I was trying to, because there was a question I had, I didn't know how to phrase it, but I guess it's kind of, is there anyone, you know, I feel like when folks are early on and thinking about their pitch and their idea, mm-hmm. that you want to talk to, you know, a lot of different people about it to get different perspectives. And I'm wondering if there's anyone that you should not talk to or should avoid talking to. That there's some groups who maybe it's too early to speak to them, or they might not have the right insights. If there's anyone, or it's just, you know, you have an idea, mm-hmm. and, you know, spread the word and you know, and see what a lot of folks are thinking.
I always tell people to talk to as many different people to get as many perspectives as you can. Again, don't share that secret sauce, right. but you know, I mean, there are very few ideas that we see that are completely unique. It's just, you know, kind of different spins on it, if that makes sense. So you're not giving something, you will stand to lose much more if you don't share your idea than mm-hmm. if you do. I would make sure you're talking to people who are trustworthy. And I'll tell you, if it's an investor, they kind of have to be trustworthy, because if they took your idea and did something with it, they will never see another deal again. So this is all about, you know, this is all about our reputations. If we get a bad reputation, I guarantee you, if someone, and you know, even in our group, when you decide you want to join Robinhood, we have a no jerks policy. And because we don't want anybody in our group to be rough or rude or disrespectful to the entrepreneurs. That is really important to us, because all we need is to have one person be disrespectful to an entrepreneur, and we'll never see another, you know, word gets around really, that's the other side of Philly being small. The word will get around really fast. Ugh, don't talk to them, they're jerks, right? So, you know, anyway, so we won't sign NDAs. But we also won't take your thing, because we'll never see a deal again.
Gotcha. All right. Well, last call for questions. As I think someone wrote in the chat that Startup Roundtable will be in this room, starting in just 4 quick minutes. So if folks are looking to grab a drink of water before that kicks off. But I just want to thank you, Alan, so much. There's a lot of thank yous in the chat. I think this has been really valuable for everyone. So we just really appreciate that.